everyone. Just back today to share a journal I've just finished. This journal is for a swap that I've been taking part with Carol Laws. A few of you know Carol Laws' work. She creates beautiful journals, and several times I've always tried to buy one, but I've always been too late. They've always gone. So I'd mentioned that to Carol in passing, and I was thrilled when she suggested that we could do a swap. The theme we've chosen is favourite books. Carol asked me for a list of my favourite books, and I gave her 5 or 6 books on it, and she said she'd choose one, and I'd choose one and make one back for her in return. So the book I've chose for Carol is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This has been a favourite of mine since I suppose in my teens. I grew up not too far from Haworth. I'm still only 30 minutes away today from Haworth, where the Brontes was born, and well, I don't think they were born there, but they lived there and they wrote a lot of the works there, alongside with Wuthering Heights, another favourite of mine. I've always been fascinated by the sisters and the works, so to finally get to do this Jane Eyre one has been a real treat for me. We just said we'd go whatever. There was no specifics in sizes, number of signatures, etc. So we just sort of went with it. But my book now is Jane Eyre. I've designed it to be like Jane Eyre's sort of personal journal. Now, Jane Eyre, if any of you know the story, was a governess, and she ended up marrying Mr. Rochester. But I won't go into the story. Those of you who know it will know it, and those of you who don't, it's always worth a read if you like that sort of stuff. But Jane was a governess, and she comes across as very prim and proper, but very spirited. So her journal, I would imagine it wouldn't be too grungy or too shabby. I would imagine it to be quite neat and tidy and functional, is how I imagine Jane to be. So that's basically what the journal is. It's meant to be Jane's personal journal, where she keeps little notes, quotations, and some of her painting. And Jane Eyre apparently was a very good painter and good at art, so I've tried to sort of put that sort of theme on it. Well, the front of it, I'll just give you a quick whirl of the side and the back. The front of it, I've just done loads of laces, because I'd imagine in those days there was lots of like antique vintage laces. Well, obviously at the time they were antique and vintage, but you catch my drift. So imagine Jane, not Joan, being the practical sort of governess that she was. She always had like spare buttons in case of emergency, and I could imagine her to be quite good at needlework, and governesses at that time seemed to be very good at needlework, French, art, drawing, sort of basically a teacher for all things. So Jane's journal would be sort of quite functional, as I've just said. So on the front there's a little picture of Jane in her wedding dress, and she's got a little keepsake of Mr. Rochester, who I imagine that's Mr. Rochester. It's just one of the Tim Holtz assemblage. I think I've done 5 signatures. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I've done 5 signatures. Don't ask me how many pages, probably 100 or just over. I've used some of the old lace paper pack, that, some bits of that I had left, and there's some vintage antiques, linens, and some new stuff as well. I've just done a very simple closure on the side. That's the side, and I'm actually doing this before I've sent the journal to Carol, obviously, so I won't upload it until Carol received it. And today I've just had some like sort of bad news, whatever. I'm currently on a 7-day self-isolate. I've started with a lot of symptoms of the coronavirus. I'm very fluey, headaches, sore throat, coughing all the time. So I've been advised I have to spend 7 days self-isolated. So this is day 1, and I feel like I'll be crawling up the walls by the end of next week. But it is what it is, and you've got to do what you've got to do. So I've probably got plenty of time to get some stuff finished and get some videos uploaded. So like I said, hopefully by the time you see this video, Carol will have got hers. I'll just give you a quick run through of it. So obviously this is the journal of Jane Eyre. I've just put a few little bit of, could you imagine Jane always writing little bits of notes and a little bit of calendar to sort of just jot stuff down. I think I've used some of the paper digitals I've used are Vintage Love Story, and I can't remember, is that Tsunami Rose or Calico Collage? I'm not quite sure which one it is, but I will link everything below. Like I said, I've used some of the Old Lace paper pack, just done a little pocket there to stuff these in. At the beginning of the book there's a little introduction about the Bronte sisters. So they were in a book that I'd gutted really. I didn't really want to gut the book, but I have got several copies of Jane Eyre, and I recently picked up one which was quite good condition, so because I knew I eventually wanted to do a Jane Eyre journal, so most of the pictures and stuff, pages, are from that book. I've used lots of lace trims because I'd imagine Jane very, very much into lace and linen, and like I said, she's very prim and neat and proper. A little journaling card, a little side tuck, plenty of space for writing notes and a timetable probably, because she did have a young girl to look after. A tiny little flip up. Just started with the beginning of chapter 1, which sort of introduces you to the characters, and so you get a bit of a feel of how Jane ended up where she did. So once I get past chapter 1, I'm going into the second signature, where she's got a little tuck spot here, a little lace pocket which I've just collaged up with some various laces and trims, and a little quote from Jane. "I am no bird and no net ensnares me. I am a free human being with an independent will." Like I said, why I love Jane Eyre, she was for the time a very independent spirit, in I suppose an era where women were sort of do as you're told, sort of be seen and not heard sort of attitude, and I always loved it that Jane had spirit. One of the reasons I love Charlotte's writing, because I think Charlotte Bronte had the same spirit of like, I may be a woman but I'm not second class citizen, and I love that. Another little quote here from Jane Eyre. Just made a little tag with live and laugh, which I would imagine would have been Jane's mottos in life. Just some music paper, because obviously Jane would have been quite competent at reading and writing music and playing the piano. Little picture which I've always thought was quite a violent image, because they're not all hearts and flowers of the Brontes books. They are there's a lot of violence in them, and violence towards women, but that was a blow from her cousin, but I think a lot of her early days shaped her. A little snippet there. I've just done a little flip here with just a little tuck spot, and it just says, "My sweetheart, his heart full of bright hopes," which I've once again edged with some vintage laces. There's a little tuck spot here with another quote from Jane. If you can see you can see this. I love that this is from the film Jane now. This is what I would imagine Jane to look like, sort of bonnets and, well, that sort of a look. Just put a little belly band with another little note thing. Jane would have liked little tuck spots to hide little mementos and stuff in. And another little belly band with a little envelope there, which is you can use for journaling or just keeping some letters and stuff in. Some more music paper. A little tuck with some little note paper for keeping notes. Done another little lace snippet and another little. I love that wedding dress, and that's how I imagine Jane's wedding dress to have looked like. Just beautiful white silk, lace, linen. A couple of pieces of ledger. Another little tuck spot with some more lace. Little envelope here with more space to write notes, because as a governess I could imagine you'd have plenty of notes. This has been a really fun swap for me to do, so it's just doing something I've been meaning to do for a long time, and I'm very grateful for Carol for asking me. Here there's some little French book paper, because like I said, Jane Eyre was very fluent in French because her ward was a little French girl that she looked after. More ledger paper. Another little picture what imagine Jane would have kept some photographs of herself. As I said before, Jane in the book was said to be very good at art, so I could imagine she would be art journaling and painting some of her memories and thoughts down on paper. Another little quote with another little pocket, which is, this actually was a snippet roll I made, and I've just cut it up and used it as pockets and tuck spots. This is some more of the Vintage Love Story digital, which I love. I've had this for years and I've always loved how pretty that it is. Writing space and some more vintage lace trim snippets. Here I've just put another little couple of journaling cards, a little tag, a little sketch of Jane when she first met Mr. Rochester after he hurt his ankle. Another quote from Jane Eyre with another little snippet. Here I've just put some extra little journaling papers in. These are all backed. Carol did say she wasn't much of a journaler, but she likes looking at things, I think, and keeping tickets and stuff, so hopefully she will find use for some of the tuck spots and things. This is supposed to be another little painting from Jane of when she first spotted Mr. Rochester sat in the garden. Couple of little tags. I just made a little belly band, which on the other side does give you more journaling paper. Is this, oh yeah, coming into the last signature now. It's obviously some more of Jane's artwork. Obviously this is her little ward that she looked after, and the dog, I forget what the dog's called, but in fact it was quite nice for me. While I was making this journal, I listened to Jane Eyre on audio, and I just felt quite inspired listening to it, and it just refreshed my mind for the story of Jane Eyre again. Another little handmade tag, another little journaling card with a tuck spot here. Once again, I'd like to thank Carol for doing a swap with me and agreeing to swap. I've really enjoyed doing it. Just nice sometimes to just do something a little bit different. Another little tuck spot with a couple of journaling cards and book pages in. Some more of what I imagine Jane's artwork to be. Another little fabric snippet. Here I've just done a little collage with a little tuck spot area, picture of Jane. I won't go into this. Is another piece from the book when Jane was having a fortune told, but that's, like I said, that's another story that goes with the book. Some more vintage laces and trims. I put plenty of them in because I could imagine Jane to be very into her lace and her linen, and like I said, she just comes across as very neat, prim and proper. That's my image of Jane anyway. Just made a little flip out up here, which I've just put on top of the page. It just gives you a little pocket here for putting bits of it. There is a tuck spot here, which actually I did mean to put some bits and pieces in, which I will do before I send it to Carol. It's just a little extra, really. It just hangs over the page like so. The last page I'm coming up to now has just got a little journaling card and another tag over on the side, some more writing space. I left the back page blank because I just love that image and I didn't really want to cover it up. I just thought it was too pretty. The back I have sandwiched two book boards onto the back of this just to make it sort of more sturdy and strong sort of thing. So there's Jane Eyre. Anyway, I hope Carol likes it, and my other half is going to pop it in the post probably on Monday because I can't go out for 7 days, which is a week today. So I'm buckling down and getting on some journaling and hopefully just some relaxing, and hopefully I'll get rid of this book, whatever I've got, after 7 days. Once again, thank you everybody for standing by and watching. Take care. Catch you all soon. Bye.